to what extent, when you saw the sex crisis, the abuse crisis, did you think, what has the Catholic Church been doing with religion? Have they been using it for their own power, glory, and in the end, power to conceal acts of evil? And did that not make you question the authority?
Yeah, it did. And that's why I left the church after 4 years of scandal. I remember
Now, hold on. So you became a Catholic in '93, but this is 10 years
2002.
later.
Yes, when the scandals
2003.
first broke big out of Boston.
You had a decade, basically, of
Yeah.
a relatively happy Catholic existence until this stuff began to emerge from
That's
the
right.
cracks.
And I learned things that you've been there too. You wrote about it, and just the evil that was uncovered was just unimaginable to most of us. And I can remember at the time thinking, I didn't fall off the turnip truck. I know there's evil in the church, but I just couldn't imagine how deep it was, how broad it was, and how twisted it was. I remember sitting in my office at National Review the spring of 2002. Boston broke in January of that year, and this was, I don't know, February or March. I was on the phone with a farmer in Kansas who his son, Eric, had...
Hold on, why were you on the phone with a farmer?
Because I was writing a piece about abuse.
Okay,
right.
I'm sorry.
And
Okay.
His son Eric had blown his brains out at the age of 19, and came out after Eric died that Eric had been abused by this one priest. Turns out, and the farmer was telling me about how they found out later that there were 5 suicides. 5 boys killed themselves, all victims of the same priest, who eventually went to jail. And the diocese knew everything about this guy, this priest. They kept reassigning him. But I remember sitting there in my chair in Midtown Manhattan, listening to this farmer tell a story about when he got the call from his daughter that Eric was dead. And he, the farmer, had to go sit on his front porch at their farmhouse and wait for his wife to come home to tell her that their son was gone. And he described seeing her car turn in at the end of the very long driveway and move slowly toward the farmhouse, him knowing that the words that were about to come out of his mouth was going to destroy her life. And I sat there in tears because my wife and I had recently, he wasn't, not recently, but we had a little boy who was 2 years old at home. And that, I'm getting tears in my eyes just thinking about it right now. But that, Andrew, was a breaking point for me, one of many breaking points. And I realized that we were not dealing with ordinary evil here. But I can remember, too, Father Tom Doyle. You might have talked to him. He's a very brave priest who basically destroyed his clerical career to speak up for victims starting in the 80s or 90s. Father Tom told me when I called him early on in the scandal to interview him, he said, "Rod, listen, I can tell that you're a serious Catholic, and I want to warn you, if you keep going down this path of investigation, you are going to go to places darker than you can imagine."